when the new chair sits.
You like
Somebody steal it
you
during
like
the Christmas dinner?
Congress and order $1 billion to we've been.
Now, in this place, not amended agenda.
It's
All right.
probably one of the meetings probably used it.
I just noticed it wouldn't.
There it is.
Must be in there. There it is.
There it is.
Pick for a new chairman to be. Wings. All right, ready for the last time. All right, good evening, everybody. We're going to call this work session and organizational meeting to order. Ms. Branch, everybody, can we call the roll, please?
Here.
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 Here. All right, next is adoption of the meeting agenda. We do have an amended agenda in front of us, so get a motion on that.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, we need to amend the amended agenda.
All right, what is your amendment, sir?
Under 4F, we need to either add another person's name on under 2 or add another whole resolution. Because it only has one
Right.
appointment to Middle Peninsula.
Right, you
Two.
brought that to my attention earlier. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I would think that the probably the easiest thing to do would be to add another name to that resolution and just call it an R, right? Okay. All right, so on item 2, we'll have resolution 22-02R, and we'll put a name on that when the time comes. Anything else?
No, sir.
Anyone else have any other amendments? All right, we have a motion and a second, as I recall, so we can get the roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, next we come to the organizational meeting of the hour here. First up is election of a board chairman for the year 2022.
Mr. Chair, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Mr. Ed Moore as chair.
Very good.
Second.
Second, any other nominations? If not, we'll close the floor to nominations. So if I could get a motion to elect Mr. Moran chairman for the year 2022.
Motion to elect.
All right.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Ms. Branch.
Aye.
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 Aye. Gotten entirely too comfortable up here. All right, Mr. Moran.
But you only have one place to sit. So we're here on my left. Yep. You'll be my left hand.
That's where I started and is where I shall end.
You ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, I'll call the meeting back to order. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for your confidence in me. Mr. Ashcraft, Mr. Hudgens, I look forward to working with you in this position. Staff, any staff, there's a couple of staff members in here, look forward to 2022. So to continue, election of the board vice chair. Any nominations from the,
Mr. Chairman.
Nominate Bill Hodges.
Second.
any other nominations? Nomination of Bill Hodges for vice chair. Do we have a motion?
Motion to elect.
Second.
Ms. Branch, you call?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, next topic is adoption of the supervisor's bylaws and rules of procedure for calendar year 2022. Mr. Ashcraft, you had, I think, recommended some of the changes, original changes. Was there a rationale behind changing it to organizational versus instead of annual, it was organizational and all through the document?
I think that was, I think our deputy clerk had picked up on that, if I recall. Is that right?
I think we can make section 1
Yeah.
-3 a little clearer,
And I had submitted a couple of recommendations to add a state code reference at the end of the document, as well as the table of contents, sorry. Any other recommendations from the floor?
Mr. Chair, on the pages, there was a couple of different places where it talked about the comment periods. They said they changed it also from address to district of residences. And as we've been told previous legal counsel, everybody doesn't have to live in the county, so district of residence wouldn't really work. Address would be better, but if we wanted to change it to district of residence, we probably have to add or county and state if we were going to do that, because we were told that anybody can talk in public comment period. You don't have to even live in the state. You don't have to live in this county. So district of residence is kind of too specific.
Could we still verbalize it if you are a county resident that you identify the district county? The reason I mean, if you don't, it's our people that elect it. And I'm gonna listen more to the county residents than I am somebody in Hanover, and we've had those call in and do that. And I don't mind them calling in, but.
Right. I can only recall a few instances in which we had, non-residents participate in public comment. Most recently were the ladies from Northern Virginia who wanted us to pass that, resolution supporting their cause. I don't see any reason you can't, just ask for the district and they can just state that they live, in another jurisdiction. It certainly doesn't preclude their right to comments, since we do have the period. It just does clarify, I think, the procedure for how you would ask, them to identify themselves.
Half the time they don't say
If they
anything anyway.
If they don't do it, we're not gonna shut them off.
Right.
Either way.
I just said thought it was a little too specific. I mean, we're changing things, but now we're making it from one so vague thing to something really specific. You know me with the spelling and everything. So.
Well, right, but it's just a request at the
Right,
same
right,
time. So
right.
it's not, demanding that they
Yeah.
reside in the district. It's simply requesting that they state the district in which they reside. So I don't see it as a big stumbling block. It just clarifies the procedure a bit, I think.
Are we good as is then?
I think so. I don't,
If we get to the point where we need to identify who they are and where they're from, we'll do so at that time.
it's easy enough. If they don't state it, you can just
Right,
ask for clarity. And if they say, well, I live in Hanover, that's fine, which we know. So I would go ahead and make a motion that we adopt the bylaws as they were presented to us in the packet.
Second.
With no further changes?
From what was presented to us, I really don't see the need for anything additional in the bylaws. I think as a governing document, what we have gives us sufficient guidance on how we comport, our business and ourselves.
Okay,
And we're talking about the approval is with the corrections that are in the printed document in our agenda.
Right.
I'm good with that.
any discussion? Ms. Branch?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Mr. McRoberts is on Zoom in case anybody had any questions. I asked him to sit in on this portion because I know bylaws are Robert's rules, and so if there's questions before you vote, he's there for that.
Good evening, Mr. McRoberts.
Good evening.
Hi, any comments from your perspective on this?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Branch?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, next topic is adoption of the 2022 meeting calendar. Mr. Ashcraft, any comments?
Mr. Chairman, the only comment on this particular calendar is does the board have an issue with meeting on Valentine's Day?
I saw that, but that was.
It's February 14th, did you know? We have it scheduled as a work session. Didn't know if you wanted to keep that date or move it, eliminate it. But I know that that can be a special day for some and others it's just a work day. So I don't know traditionally how you feel about that.
Well, I'm already in the doghouse. We had a board meeting on anniversary. So I came to that.
Travis had one on his
So
birthday.
I haven't gotten out of the doghouse yet, so I don't have any problem.
Well, right, we had, I think, a meeting on my birthday this year, and well, last year I came to that one, but we also
Yeah,
had
I
a meeting on my
remember.
wife's birthday, and you notice where it was for that. So, yeah. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I saw it, but I didn't want to bring it up, but I was just thinking, sometimes we don't have a lot to talk about, we could just cancel it, but I mean, I don't know if you, Mr. McRoberts or Mrs.
Well,
have any.
there's a second half to this, is that there's been a request, and I believe it comes from the planning commission, that at some point, the planning commission, the EDA, and the board of supervisors would have a joint meeting to talk about the comp plan.
Right, at the same time, it's a Monday, so I mean, I'm good leaving it on there. I think it's,
And that looks like, given the busy calendar that takes place in January, that might be the best time to get everybody together. And we would just make it part of your meeting. We haven't set that agenda yet, but there are a few things that obviously are traditional in your meeting reports and so forth, but that would be one that we would ask everybody to come and participate in.
Mr. Hodges, any?
No, I'm good on that. I was just skimming on down through the rest of it.
And we've taken into consideration the Waco conference, I believe.
Yeah, that's what,
Yeah.
and that's good the way it is, correct?
because that should be the first Monday in November, looks like.
And they've changed the ones with the holidays too. Last year was messed up, so that it's all corrected. And they even have the highlights and the notices for what each one is. That's good, thanks.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and make a motion that we adopt the proposed 2022 meeting schedule as presented.
Sorry.
Any further discussion? Ms. Branch?
Aye.
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 Aye. And along, next is the adoption of the 2023 budget schedule. Mr. Ashcraft?
Mr. Chairman, in order to prevent one long day, we've broken your schedule up into 3 different work sessions. And since we met last, I've added Wednesday, March the 2nd. And we think that we can get a good schedule for you without it being too lengthy and burdensome. So we would ask if you consider that. And we've eliminated the all-day meeting. We think we can be more effective in presenting that information to you in three separate meetings.
And the 31st of January would have been our regular meeting, correct? Yeah.
No, the 24th is your regular meeting.
Right.
2 weeks from today.
All the highlighted
Okay,
ones are
I got
extra.
you.
That's a rarity with the 5 Mondays a year. Then obviously you can have other work sessions if you choose during the course of the year, but this is really pre-planning. And then the budget would be proposed at your last meeting in March.
Are we otherwise on schedule with the previous milestones here? The submissions and outside
Yeah.
agencies? and-
We are, yes.
Okay.
We're going to get off a little bit tonight because we wanted to give you an overview of the budget from last year as the books closed on June 30th. But Mr. Journal is not going to be able to make that because of her health.
Okay.
What's the longest we can go a night if it were to run on?
11.
11?
Yeah, I don't. We feel good about structuring it. And then as we get through the first one, you'll be able to see it and you can guide us if you want something else in meeting 2 or meeting 3.
Do we need a motion to,
Motion to approve. Second.
any discussion?
The only thing that I see on here that gives me a little bit of heartburn is the public hearing notices being published on the 23rd and the budget being released on the 28th. Should we have the budget ready for public inspection on the 23rd?
Or what date?
23rd, the same day that the public hearings are published, because that is the day we will begin receiving questions. So having a document that's still a working document and otherwise not available for public inspection, I think will cause some consternation. So I think it might help our cause and also help the public have ample time to, prepare for the public hearing. If we had that budget, released and ready for public inspection on the 23rd. That's just my thought. The staff feel that's a mountain you can climb.
Is it doable?
We won't even get the school board one till the 8th.
We ran into this problem last year, did we
Yeah.
not? Right, and I imagine that we'll run into this problem again if we do it this way. We were, very much so.
We can get it done. That part of it's
Okay.
not an issue. It was just, are you going to have a document that has not been presented to the board officially, but it's presented to the public?
Isn't that what happened last year?
Yeah, come
Yeah,
on the paper before we
I'm
got
always,
it.
Well, no, it was quite the opposite last year. It was, we had a draft of it, I think, maybe a day and a half or so before it was available, but nonetheless.
One problem was the proposed tax rate was published before you guys had it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, a few weeks later, we had a working draft of the document and the public was, the media was already asking for it to be. Had a chance to really.
I mean, but you understand what I'm seeing as a potential landmine there.
I do. I think we just don't want to end up having to change a bunch of stuff after we publish it.
maybe it'd be better to have presented to you on the 14th. And then,
It may be, again, I don't want the publication for the, for the hearing to be out there, but the document not to be available.
sure, so we could present on the 14th, and then we would, we would set the public hearing date. Instead of.
I mean, alternatively, I mean, we can. Well, we need to have that outside of a regular meeting for the public hearing, so couldn't really do that. If you think you can have it ready on the 14th, and that's no big, no big problem. I think I'd prefer maybe to do it that way.
We can do that.
Okay.
Your last budget meeting, work session is the second. We'll have a pretty good feel for
Okay.
what you're thinking, and we'll be building it as we go. We'll have it done by the 14th.
Okay, and then that also maybe gives everybody some time if
Yeah.
there is input from the board that needs to go in there to drastically change anything
That's right.
before it's
That's right.
publicized
And
or not.
obviously, once it's presented, you can change it all. the
Sure,
time.
yeah, but I mean, if there's some big,
Absolutely.
thing that we see to where like, oh boy, no, we don't really want to do that. or
Well,
we
that's
don't
the
wanna do
purpose
that, or
of the
whatever.
work session, to get your temperature on where you are with
Right.
major things, certainly.
And will that work considering the school board draft review on the 8th? The 8th and the 14th, I mean.
Consider it split. For how much it would affect my company.
Right,
Yeah, I think we could work around
Because-
that. We'll talk to Dr. White. We have a meeting with him tomorrow.
right. If the school board maybe can start to feed information in earlier, because
Yeah.
there have been years in the past when
Yeah,
their budget presentation was the first time that anybody, board, staff, at all, had seen their proposal.
right.
So, yeah, we can run ahead of that.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion? We're looking at an amended revised schedule of 14 March for the,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest change that I see would be striking budget release from the 28th and putting that on the 14th, which we already have scheduled as a work session.
any other discussion? Everyone clear on the change? Okay, Ms. Branch?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Boards and commissions, item 4F. There's no mystery. I would like to see things changed around a little bit this year. However, certainly willing to discuss any volunteer to change committees. Everyone's satisfied where they are, whatever it takes to get through this. So any discussion items this time before we get into the appointments?
I'm happy with the committees I serve.
I agree.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. Social services and Parks and Rec.
I'm not gonna argue. It's not worth it. So resolution 22-01.
All right, we're gonna go through each one individually, is that how?
Well,
Yeah, I think it's best if we.
since
just
the
do it.
resolution, yes.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 22-01, appointing Mr. Hodges to the Historic Preservation and Architectural, Review Board to a term ending December 31st of this year.
Probably moved in second. Any discussion? Ms. Branch?
Aye.
Aye.
Did I understand you ending this year? Yeah, the 22nd. Okay, I'm with you now. I was thinking that I was reading the 21st. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to resolution 22-02R.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution 22-02R, appointing myself and Chairman Moran to a term on the Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission expiring December 31st of this year.
Second.
Properly motion and seconded. Any discussion? Ms. Branch?
Aye.
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 Aye. Resolution 22-03, appointment to planning commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution 22-03, appointing Mr. Greenwood to a term on the Planning Commission expiring December 31st of this year.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? Ms. Branch?
Aye.
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 Aye. Resolution 22-04, appointment to recreation commission.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve resolution 22-04, appointing Mr. Stuart Garber to that Recreation Commission.
In a second.
Second.
Motion moved and properly second. Any discussion? Ms. Branch?
Aye.
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 Aye. Resolution 22-05, appointment to social services board.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 22-05, appointing Mr. Garber to a term on the Social Services Board ending December 31st of this year.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? Ms. Branch?
Aye.
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 And this is, the next one's the one I was hanging up. Is that still good with Ms. Tussin or the last one? The next one coming up.
Somehow I doubt that.
That's what I thought. That's why I was asking about were we doing them all or not.
Oh,
And we talked about this, that typically the county administrator was assigned to this slot. Is that because Mr. Miskowski or Mr. Greenwood, that you were not available during normal business hours when these meetings were held?
Right, I've never been available to go to this one because they meet in various locations and don't normally do it during working hours.
She just volunteered when no one else volunteered, if I remember correctly.
So this is a good one for any of you retirees that are interested.
But that's,
I'm loaded up.
that's,
Well,
that's what I'm getting at, is that I have the availability. Am I the proper person to do this?
I believe so, in which instance I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution 22-06 appointing Mr. Moran as the Board of Supervisors representative to the Virginia Career Works Local Elected Officials Consortium for a one-year term ending December 31st. this
Second.
year.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion? Ms. Branch?
aye.
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 Aye. Okay, thanks, gentlemen, for stepping up. One more year. It'll be exciting, I'm sure. Work session matters. Ms. Mary Sue Bancroft, you're up. Happy New Year.
Good evening, good to see you all. Happy New Year. Okay, so December 15th, I talked with the Auditor of Public Accounts to discuss with them the situation regarding the audit, and we have asked for a delay of audit until 2/28 of 22. And that was granted, of course, and we had to post it on our website and on the admin building doors as required. And we sent that information to the Auditor of Public Accounts, and they were fine with that. We are making progress on the reconcilements of the operating and the schools accounts. It is a tedious and cumbersome process, but we are making some headway.
Where would you say you are percentage-wise?
Where am I what? Percentage?
Percentage-wise,
Oh, gosh.
just rough order.
I hate to be overly optimistic, but I'm feeling pretty good. I want to say like 60%. So yeah, we worked all weekend long, and we plan to keep on working as much as we can to try to get this done. My goal really would ideally be 31st of January. I don't want to push it till the end of February.
Okay.
So that would be my goal. But
And the office is back healthy?
no. Yeah, so we had to close the office 2 days last week. I was uncertain of when I would be able to have someone come back in, and one of my deputies was able to come in later in the afternoon on Thursday, and so that was a big help. I have two other deputies who are still out. One of the deputies has a child who now has become ill. So other than that, I didn't get it. Any questions?
Anyone?
Oh, well,
Go ahead.
does it have to be, well, it's close to the same thing. We were wondering, and that might be a good time for me to do that. If you could have an announcement to tell everybody that taxes are due. A lot of people I've found out have forgotten.
Well, and yeah, a lot of them confuse the January 15th date with the
Right.
real estate.
Right.
So we do have those. But we did get a really good turnout of folks to go ahead and pay the personal property beforehand. A lot of them expressed that they were just used to doing it. And so they've gone ahead and done that. We are getting a lot of them in the mail. As you all know, we do not have the lockbox to process the payments, real estate or personal property. So my office is handling every single one of them. So it's a lot.
So if I tell people they can't use that box, they have to either bring it in or mail it.
No, there's like 7 options. You
Oh.
can drop it off at the drop box. You can go to CNF Bank. You can go to either location. You can go to Essex. You can go to Atlantic Union. And then you can online, you can by phone. You can mail it to us. You can bring it by the office.
Oh, it's simple. It was just a last thing. Do you know about how much has already done it in advance? Like how many you're waiting on still? And you may not have that number.
Well, so, the 15th is the due date. Well, the 15th, of course, is a Saturday, so that really gives them until Monday. Well, Monday's the holiday, so that really gives them until Tuesday. So it's kind of a win for them. I don't really feel like we have a whole lot left. I'm gonna say maybe, if I had to guess, 30-40% maybe. I think we've gotten the good majority.
I was almost one of them late. I forgot. I was so accustomed to doing them both on December the 5th.
Mhm.
And I stumbled across it. I said, wow.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people might end up paying a late fee because they associate it so much with the real estate payment.
Well, but that's the
Like it
thing that's a
used to.
little puzzling to me. If you associated it with the December 5th date, then why would you be late on January 16th?
Well, in my case, you look at it and you say, well, you're buying time is what it is.
Right. Well, I suppose if they're gonna be late for that, they would have been late for the December one too then.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of my thoughts. But it's nice for some folks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, of course. And any other questions?
Just personal. I hadn't seen my check clear. Do y'all hold them for a length of time?
No, when did you do yours?
I mailed it. It's still in the mail, I'll check. with you
10%
later.
late fee.
I was gonna say, you don't have-
You still have time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is personal property.
You know where we are.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's
Yeah.
10% late fee on that.
Only to
If
the
it's not
people-
postmarked.
Only to the people in the fourth district.
Oh, really? I hope you never move to the fourth district.
Real quick, Ms. Bancroft, while we have you here, and there's been a lot of discussion over the past year about the software. I know that, after our last talk, we were hoping to have some more dialogue and maybe some more time with Edmonds. Do we feel like we're making progress on that front? And we still,
Okay,
Struggle.
so I'm really liking Edmonds from my perspective, from what I have to do. I find it very user friendly. It just comes so easy to me. And I struggle. I'm sorry that the deputies don't like it as much, but they're more impacted by the day-to-day transactions of, oh, I don't know how to do this. This caused this. How do I do this? And, my job with it is like I'm pulling reports, I'm reconciling, I'm, finding detailed information, and I'm just really very good at that. And they're just so bombarded with payments that they don't really have a time that they can learn more about the system. So for them, it is very frustrating. Some of the other, like Karina Funkhauser's department, they don't like it either. So we're still finding, quirks and kinks, and Edmonds they're getting they'll call us and let us know, hey, we can talk to you now. Can we fix this? And, so they really are, they're very good, but it is just very frustrating. That's all.
right, but the responsiveness that had been an issue before, we're seeing improvements there.
I'm seeing some improvements. Yeah, they still, I had an issue recently where one person's history transactions from 2018 wasn't there at all. The 17 was there, but the 19 was there, and the 20 and the 21, but not 18. Also, come to find out, Edmonds had missed about 1,000 accounts to put in with the 2018 historical information. So I brought that to their attention, and they did get that fixed. So they're seem to be pretty good on that. But yeah, I think it's getting better.
It's not gonna tank 2022, right?
Oh gosh, I hope not. I don't think so.
Just, okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. We'll get there. It's just a very big learning curve. So, one with all the offices been faced, that's just one more thing on top of it that was a challenge. But I gotta tell you, my deputies are amazing. I know I say that every time, but I want you all to hear it every single time. They are the most amazing people that I have ever had the pleasure of working with. So kudos to them.
We hope everybody's on the mend.
Yes, thank you so
Good.
much. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we have Fire EMS Department update. Chief Reeves.
Good evening, how are you guys? Happy New Year. I just want to go through a few things with the Omicron variant. It's definitely the dominant COVID issue going on right now. The last update that we received from Three Rivers was last Monday, and 1 week prior to that, just in that 7-day time span, the numbers in our district doubled. It's highly infectious. But, you guys, I guess, saw the notification today about the state of emergency for the hospitals. It's so contagious. So we have issued a 24-hour mask mandate for the fire department to try to help protect ourselves. We're not immune to it. So knock on wood, still to date, we have no internal transmissions. However, we have had many isolations due to infections. Just want to reiterate the importance of all the steps that we're taking to try to keep that spread down and out of our government. So our recruits that we picked up and started in January had a rocky start to the new year with the weather, and business as usual is a little elevated. So they did their orientation. They have some things that we're going to follow through on when they come back and catch them up just before they start into their fire class. They had their first day today with TNCC for their EMT program. That'll end in 6 weeks. And looking forward to getting those guys vetted and out in the field to help out with all these calls we're trying to run with too few people. Our call volume this year is steadily climbing as we expected. We've been predicting that with the growth of the county. So as those things continue to happen, we're trying to get in front of that curve with the staffing. We're going to be meeting with the folks from the different fire department leaderships to develop tactical guidelines, which will help us with protocols that govern the fire response expectations countywide. We've already kind of met unofficially in a very loose manner to discuss planning for this year to get all these procedures and guidelines written. We're working with the sheriff's office to help with some of the dispatch stuff that's going to come about, trying to stay in front of that as we develop these protocols. The ESO programming is out running. There are a few modules that take a little bit more time to build out that are just more of a business management type thing with personnel management records and assets and things like that that just take time to get all that stuff entered into the system. But we're running our scheduling software currently. West Point and Mangahick both are live with their reporting. I believe West Point is currently using the scheduling software for their folks as well. Mangahick's in the process of developing it. So a little more complicated when you have the 100% volunteer without a scheduled time slot that they go into. So they're working with ESO to get that built out. Some of the kinks that we've had have all been corrected very quickly. So it looks like it's going to be, again, knock on wood, a pretty smooth transition.
Does that mean that you can see Station 2, for example, their stats?
There we can pull reports from an umbrella account to see numbers as it reports out, just like when we pull stuff from the CAD. So over the next year, we'll get a much better grasp because it's pulling from the end user call types. So when we look at it, if it gets incorrectly entered in the CAD because they're trying to launch the call and then they change it in the field when they get on scene, or maybe it's just something that wasn't relayed to the dispatcher by the caller. At the end of the day, when we report through ESO, when they put the call type in there, when we run those reports, we'll be able to pull down the exact how many cardiac arrests that we have, things like that. So our historical data will be building for the first time in a very robust manner over the next 12 months. Moving on to the grant discussions, I do want to remind you guys that we were going for 13 people and safer. We were holding off on having that discussion about the 6 people that we didn't hire because we wanted to see what Safer was going to offer this year. So they're offering the same 3 years, 100% pay with benefits involved. So if we decide, or if you guys approve going after the Safer grant again this year, and if we were awarded those 6 positions, what that would do is that the salaries for those 6 positions would be pushed back another year. So the crossover between the 13 would be spread out further for the extra 6. So it'll kind of mesh out, but I think it'll put us in a better position for the availability of funding as the growth has another year in the county to develop.
When we applied for that initially,
Yes, sir.
I know that it was a group, an outside group that did the application.
Yes, sir.
Are we using them again?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Because, they pretty much guaranteed it. and they didn't
Yeah,
have-
well, the problem is this group is highly successful. We have several grants that are, people around us have, referred us to them. We have several grants this year that we're going through them with. I contacted the federal representative for our grants this year, and one of the things that hurt us was call volume. And the reason why it hurt us was because we're going against grants with a locality that's got 1 million people in it. And we didn't get out of the electronic validation scoring system. Nobody even looked at our grants because of the system, not because of the grant writer, because there's a lot of stuff going on with the funds on the backside. It seemed like a lot of money, but it got small real quick because they're fully funding, where in the past they didn't. And they cut the grant from years previous. So this year, those qualifiers that kept us from being reviewed are being pushed to the back of the grant process. So we will more than likely be reviewed by the review panel. And it puts us in a much better position to get the grant. So we don't really know, we don't have a measure on the quality of grant writing that was performed because it never got out of the electronic because of statistics.
Is there a way to look at other similar communities around this is a national grant, I assume?
Yes.
Is there a way to look at other similar communities to assess? There's got to be a factor in there or an algorithm that takes into consideration.
Well, we've been speaking with New Kent. You guys know that I was originally in Hanover County. They got the Safer grant numerous times, but usually the departments that have to get these grants, they don't get it the first time or the second time. It spins into it. But the quality of the grant writing, like I said, this year for us, we can't even measure it because it never got out of the electronic process. So we don't have any feedback to look at. I guess I'm just trying to get a feel for where you guys are with it as far as going for the 6 positions again this year.
Yes, I would very much like to apply again.
Okay.
Because it's a need.
Yeah, and it's it's a lot. It's a good coverage. It's something that's never been offered until this past year. And if we miss this boat, there are some predictors out there that this funding is going to be stifled a little bit over the next few years. So
If for some unforeseen reason we don't get the grant, are we going to be looking at hiring the 6 additional? Is that going to be a need?
it's a need. I think what we need to do if we don't get the grant is sit back and develop a financial plan to try to work those folks in over a step process. I don't know that we're going to be able to fund that many people.
Is this,
Right, and I think that might be Mr. Garber's question is, are we committing to hiring the 6 if we don't get the grant? And I don't think that's what you're asking for.
And I think that would be a different discussion.
Right.
If we don't get the grant, I think we come back in September and have this discussion again
The-
to see where we are.
Do you know when these grants will sunset? Do you think that it might be a chance again next year or?
To go for the grant again?
Yeah,
It's all up to the federal government and the grant committees and how they distribute the funds. And they can change the rules 2 days before they open it. And it literally just opened, I believe, last week, and it closes February the 12th, I believe. So the Safer Grant is only open for a very short period of time. And they changed, like last year when they came out, they told us literally when it came out, hey, we're going to pay for everything. We had some insight that they may be doing that. That's how we were able to have our conversations ahead of time, but we didn't really know that they were going to do that until right before they opened the grant process. And so they could come back next year and tell us at the end of the year, just before they open the process, that they're going to open it, but you're going to get 65%, 35, and no benefits. So we just don't know until the committee meets and makes a decision.
And just so even the public knows, it's still 13 positions.
It'll be a total once everybody is done.
That's
We're
what I'm
not
getting at,
adding-
because we keep saying applying for 6. It's not another additional 6.
No, sir. That we hired 7 using ARPA. And so we will end up having to pay those salaries a year early. But then we'll have, if we get the Safer for the 6, we'll be paying those salaries a year later than we would have. So it splits it apart over, kind of marches out over about 3 years. It's kind of wonky sounding, but so you'll have a year early and then you have a year with nothing and then you'll pick them up the 3rd year.
Which still will come due.
13 people. Oh,
I said, but will still come due.
yes,
Some
they will.
will.
Yes, yes. As do all grants.
Chief, now that we have the 21 census figures, does that change your need any?
The census for the population.
880 new homes since the last 10 years, last decade. How many? I got the numbers on the number of citizens in the county now. Does that factor? It was 10% growth or so? 11%?
Yeah, this plan that put us at the 13 people was encompassing our current need and to put us a little bit ahead of the curve so that we could be where the prediction was coming in at with the studies that were done for the water system and the comp plans, all those studies.
So we can say with the level of we can say with a level of confidence that we factored the growth into your 13 positions.
Yes, sir. Yes. I mean, it's not going to leave us, immune to needing more people down the road, but these 13 positions should put us in a spot to where we can maintain for a while.
That's covering the center section of the county, correct?
Well, the thought process is when calls don't always happen right in the middle of the county. And one of the biggest problems that we have right now is we have vast areas that have a 20-minute response time on a good day. So when we have a fully staffed day with those 13 people in hand, we would be able to have a unit that we could stage somewhere else. So one of the key focus areas is in the Mangahick district. When they don't have an ambulance marked up, we run a lot of calls in the Mangahick district in Central Garage, and then fewer, but we still have them, and they're all, the severity of the calls throughout the county they range from, small, nearly non-emergent to life-threatening calls. And the value in distance, is sometimes detrimental to the patient calling 911. However, the volume of calls is where you try to concentrate. So the plan would be to utilize those folks and move them where they would be shortening that response time based on what the need was for that time of day, and based on the resources available.
That's difficult because I monitor the emergency calls and they're everywhere.
Yeah, they are.
They are. But even with 13, you wouldn't have the equipment presently to add a whole lot to that response, would you? Without more equipment.
Well, in July we will. So we're actually, I haven't gotten there yet, but we're, our new ambulance, I'm doing final inspection on that on this Thursday and Friday. So that third ambulance will, won't be something that we're keeping in the back storage room just to get by on a day, because the other one that we were is dead to us, as you well know, deadlined. And so that'll be 3 ambulances, and then we'll have 2 engines running out of the firehouse. So we would have the capability with those people to run 3 ambulance calls all at one time without having to ask for help from somebody else to staff those units. We could effectively, take an engine, a tanker, and an ambulance to a house fire if we needed to, with that staff.
What's the condition of the 2 that you have now?
They are 2019 and a 2018, I believe.
The last one?
18, yeah. Yeah, so the 2 ambulances that we have that we're running out of right now were the ones that were bought through the RSAF. There were 2 of them back to back. So they're basically new. They get old quick though.
I wasn't gonna say that, but I knew that.
Yeah, so our long-term planning that, we're just getting our feet under us as a fire service. The board has really supported us in our growth. With the implementation of the staff, we'll have that solid foundation, and we can stop trying to react to everything going on in our environment and start to do our replacement planning and our capital planning for the 5, 10, 15 year based off of historical data that we didn't have when we walked in the door. So to answer your question about the ambulances, and the getting old, that's something that we have to consider moving forward, and having the third ambulance will help us with that. It'll help reduce some of the mileage, but it also ensures that we have a backup to throw in there when we have an issue. And it also gives us the ability to put it on the road when we need it. All right. Any more questions about?
Are you moving on, or any questions about that, or are you moving on?
I'm gonna move on if you guys might have any more questions about this.
Go ahead with the next thing.
Okay, so the next thing is the AFG for the brush truck. The same AFG grant that we applied for last year. The same deal. It got kicked out because of the call volume. This vehicle, looking at the need in the county and what we have and what we don't have across the county, speaking with the writers and even other localities, it's obvious that there's a need here for it to be approved through the grant system. It's just got to get to that point where somebody's sitting down reading the grant. And the grant this year is written exactly the same for AFG when it opened up. This year, they only wanted 2020 stuff. So they didn't want anything from 2021. So when they reopened AFG for this, you could only submit 2020 numbers. So it's the exact same grant we wrote last year, with the difference being, and this comes from our federal representative from AFG, that those numbers that kicked us out of the electronic qualification will not be considered till the end of the grant. So say we got 2 localities that have the same request, and it comes down to the wire and they're equal all the way to the end. That's the point of where they would say, okay, you run 20 more calls a year than this guy, that's who you get it. Versus cutting you out at the beginning because you don't have 1 million people in your count.
Is this an additional brush truck over and above what we have now?
No, sir, it is going to replace the one that is nearly unsafe to drive.
Okay, so we're not going to have 2 then?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir. It's actually going to replace 2 vehicles. One can be repurposed, but the brush truck will be taken out of play in deadline for grant requirements. But this new one will give us the capability of carrying 400 gallons of water with a 500 GPM pump, which could effectively fight a house fire. And it'll also have a patient retrieval capabilities for remote patient retrieval, as well as ALS non-transport capabilities to work to perform ALS interventions if that vehicle is down by the river or whatever. Good with that one?
You ain't gotta wait on me.
Oh, well, I just want to make sure I get you guys' questions answered. I'm sorry it's going long. It's just a lot to talk about with all the grants, especially going into budget season. We did go ahead and submit because of the crunch time frame and actually being able to get the stuff together and write the grants. Last year, we talked about the need for SCBA replacement coming in about a $275,000 capital fund request. And of course, COVID and everything else, that's gone up quite some bit since we had the discussion. We're joining with West Point. Our equipment is worse off than West Point is. However, when you do a regional grant request, you greatly increase your likelihood of getting the grant. This would be for a total replacement of all the SCBA, the bottles, the masks. The equipment that we're currently using that we acquired when the equipment was purchased by the county is in it's in quite bad shape. We have to make a move this year one way or the other on it, or we're going to end up with firefighters and no way to go in and fight fire. So we don't want to get in that boat. And this is something we inherited. It wasn't oversight by people in front of us or anything like that. It's just the way it is with this whole rollout. West Point stuff, and talking with the chief down there, is right behind us. It's not very far off in its age. The difference is, I think they, had a lot better planning in their procurement in the past. So most of their stuff was kind of the same area, same date range, same NFPA standards. Ours is all over the place. We have stuff that's 4 generations out. NFPA doesn't want you to use anything past the end of life after the 3rd generation. That's come out. They come out every 5 years. And then inside of that, they have to be able to be flow tested and maintained with the regulator that comes on the pack. So you take all those factors and put them together, we're in bad shape with our SCBA.
From the email that you sent out, a lot of that stuff, the useful life is going to expire this year,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
So if we don't get this grant, believe me, I know nothing about this. Can any of that stuff be recertified for use? It cannot.
That's what the NFPA standard revisions are, is as you go through, they maintain those packs at their standard. So we've been working on them. And one of the problems is after the 3rd generation, well, the biggest problem is they're out of standard. So you go out and you hurt somebody and you're out of standard, it's your fault. It doesn't really matter what you did for the pack to keep it in shape. The other thing is they get the 3rd standard and you can't buy parts for them. So you're having to go dig through somebody else's junk pile to try to find a regulator for somebody to breathe air through to go into a burning fire to, do their job. So that's where we are with all this stuff.
And generally, I try to look at the whole county. Why do we not have magnetic in this?
They bought new air packs last year
Okay,
or a year before last, I think.
good answer.
I did talk to them.
The only problem I have is, I know all this equipment has to be cleaned, maintained, probably after every use. I'm sure that someone must have noticed, been aware that all this stuff, all this equipment was going to sunset at the same time.
Yes. Yeah, we
I'm a
discussed it
firm
last year.
believer in being proactive, and we all know what happens when we kick the can down the road.
Yeah, well, I mean, we discussed it last year, and we knew that we had this coming at us. And we were trying, we had to pick the lesser of 2 evils to try to make things work for us. And, that was, we can get 1 more year out of this thing, but we got to be prepared to do it. And that, that's.
So, not to cut across anybody, so when we hire the additional, if we get the grant, do we have enough equipment for them?
Yes,
Or
sir.
we do.
Yeah,
If-
you buy these per riding position, not per person.
Okay.
So when they come in on shift, if there's a packed seat for them to fill, that's where the pack is.
Okay.
You don't fill the packs out per person. It's per riding seat.
All right. Thank you.
So these days with supply problems, is this equipment available if we had the money to buy?
What they build it after you order. You're not gonna buy an SCBA where they keep them on the shelf.
No, I think he meant, is even the items to put it together available right now, do you know? Or like most things you order now, I ordered something back in July and it still hadn't come in.
Yeah, the SCBA, the last update that I got from the vendor was they're about a year out manufacturing.
I think that's what we were looking, right, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, so
It's not unusual
no,
in
and
today's world.
and last year, if we had known that we were gonna be looking at a year in production, from 3 months production, maybe we should have asked for the capital funds last year to buy it, but I don't know where we would have found it, but, I think that we're just at that point where we did the best we could to get time and to put the things in place that we needed immediately, and now this is the next immediate need.
And when, I'm sorry, did anybody else say, when will they know on this grant?
All of these come around August, September timeframe. They'll start usually announcing in August.
So your equipment's definitely gonna be out of commission before.
Yeah, we're gonna have to buy something, grant or no grant, by the end of the year.
That's what I thought.
When is the second tranche of American Rescue supposed to hit, and any confidence that it will hit July? It's roughly 2 million. Okay. So Chief, I would recommend a plan B as soon as possible.
Well, we got A and B, so we'll do C.
Well, how about C?
You can
Yeah.
throw D in there if you want.
Yeah, the only, like I said, West Point has been working with us to try to get this grant put together. Where the county is maintaining the prime filing of the grant, where our grant writers are writing, West Point will be responsible for their percentage of out of pocket. And they would, they also take possession of the equipment. So once it comes out and it's done, if we get the grant, it'll be their equipment, they're responsible for maintaining it and everything. So we don't have to, that continuous fee to take care of. They will, somewhere down the line, it's got to be taken.
So we are going to apply for this grant with West Point.
Yes, sir.
So it'll be all or nothing. It won't be one locality gets it.
No, sir, because it's a regional grant.
Okay.
So, and they're far more likely to approve a regional grant than they are individual grant. And so we had to break that out. So the compressor that we have is 20 years old, and it should be in the grant. So it was originally going to be in the grant until we discussed with West Point about doing the regional grant. So on the regional grant, the rules won't let you buy a compressor on a regional grant. So we have a secondary grant specifically for the compressor. So that's how we'll end up getting all the equipment if it's fully grant funded.
How does West Point stand with their compressor?
Andrew told me that they're in good shape with their compressors. He said he didn't really have that much to worry about. He said it was actually.
Have you discussed anything with them if you had to utilize theirs?
Yeah. If we have to go to West Point and use our compressor, problem is distance, time.
I know,
all
I
that stuff.
understand.
I assume Magnet Head has one also.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah, and the one that we have is, so it's 20 years old. It takes forever to fill one bottle. And, and all the safety features aren't there. It doesn't measure any kind of gases. So we could be pumping CO into the air bottles. We wouldn't notice people started falling out of the yard. Current standards won't allow you to have one, but that one was created when they weren't required. The control module on it that makes it actually work, you cannot buy. So if that electronic part dies, then it's just dead. So lots of things with SCBA. The good thing about the compressor is, like you said, if we had to, stockpile bottles, for a little bit to get by and just go back and forth between, the stations and fill them or something, we could get by with that. But ideal, because of our geography, we need that. If we had a working incident, we need to go and get fresh bottles filled and stuff to maintain service. You're talking about driving 30 minutes one direction to go get some bottles. So it all comes down to to service delivery and safety, of course. More questions about that?
First one.
All right, the third ambulance, as you know, I already talked about that, it's out of service. We have maintained insurance only just in case we needed to move it around, so we wouldn't get in any kind of trouble on the highway. But we should be getting ready very soon here to sell that. The final inspection for the new one, like I said, is Thursday and Friday. Myself and Brown will be going to Pennsylvania for that. Spoke with the guys about the engine. That build is still on time, believe it or not. We're looking at a possible, I don't want to jinx myself, but a possible delivery somewhere around June-ish on the engine. We have received a report back from the workshop in its rough form, and we'll be going through that and preparing the presented changes and things to the EOP to work through with the county administrator to present to you guys about the things that we feel like need to be addressed and the projects that we need to go forth with from that exercise. We're still working on the EOC based on some of the stuff that we've, kind of seen and discussed with the emergency managers from other departments, and as well as feedback from the workshop. That's just kind of a slow build out as well at this point. So we'll start building out work plans for each of these steps to try to get a driving force and get that stuff taken care of as quickly as possible. And Chief Jones, Assistant Chief Jones is stepped down as a full-time employee. He's going to continue with us as a part-time employee. And his first big task of this year is going to be to try and get a CERT team created and off the ground and running. I know Mr. Ashcraft has got some experience with those and be a big support to us in getting that going. You guys familiar with the CERT Citizens Emergency Response Team?
My mother was on the CERT in James City when she lived over there. So.
Okay. Yeah, so it's a great resource for the county. We're looking really looking forward to getting this thing off the ground. We've already had one meeting, and we'll be meeting. It was supposed to have a meeting on Monday today, but due to health issues with the main players that were going to that meeting, it got canceled. So hopefully in the next 2 weeks we'll have the follow up, and we'll be able to give you some more detail on it.
Any other questions, comments, gentlemen?
Yeah, there's a question, a different subject. A constituent called me and said that they got a bill from the Board of Supervisors for an ambulance call, and I was wondering, are they responsible to pay that? Or I thought if they paid taxes, that's one of the services we provide, or is it if they don't have insurance or?
Right. That bingo.
Okay, that was it.
Yeah, they get billed for the ambulance services. Yeah.
So but I was curious why she said it came from the Board of Supervisors that had our names on. She said, "You sent me a bill." I'm like, well, I don't remember sending any bills.
But that's how the business part of it's set up. At the Board of Supervisors is the.
Okay, so she should pay it.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
I got a call like that last year myself.
Okay. Oh, for you personally?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so-
And if she's struggling with that,
Just call.
have her give me a call.
Okay.
I'll discuss it with her.
Right.
Well, they're supposed to turn it into their insurance. If their insurance rejects it, then they come
Then they're
to you.
Right.
Now, do the volunteer stations bill for
Yes.
ambulance?
Yes, sir.
Okay, everybody bills.
Yes. Yep. Their billing is done through their own organization, though. It does not come back to the county.
What are we talking about in ambulance? Is it a standard price or is it based on distance?
Well, good business practices with billing, ambulance billing, over time, it's been all over the place, and it does you well to hire a company to do your billing for you that you trust, has got a good reputation, which is what we do. And we work with them annually. We meet with them throughout the year. We discuss pricing. We discuss what Medicare, Medicaid's paying out for the patients, so that we try to get our rates aligned with what's going on with all that stuff. So I can't tell you what they do at the volunteer organizations as far as their billing, but I do know that both of them use a third-party billing company, so I would assume that their business practices with that are very similar to ours.
But it's safe to say we're not in this for profit. We're just covering costs.
Oh, not even close to a profit, sir. Yeah, it doesn't even cover the cost of running the call.
Is it passive?
Sir?
Is it passive?
Yes. Yeah.
Passive billing.
Yes. Soft bill.
All right, Chief, appreciate it.
All right,
Lot going on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congressional hearing.
Okay, next we have the Motorola radio project update, Mr. Travis Wolf.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening.
So for the Motorola project, in the last couple of weeks, I've been asked to come back on as project manager, so I'm getting back up to speed. But what I can report to you is 6 out of the 7 towers are complete. The Virginia State Police Tower at West Point is not. We are still waiting for a signature from the Attorney General, which is on their way out. So I'm assuming it's going to be delayed a little bit longer. There has been some discussion with Motorola on going ahead to do the installation of the new equipment. I think they're waiting till the new administration comes in to kind of make sure that it's okay to move forward with that. We have been pushed back from a go live this year, obviously, last year to 2022. They are estimating a June go live. We missed the full foliage test by the end of August to be able to go live this year. Motorola will not turn over the system until a full foliage test has been done.
So it's go live June
2022.
22.
Yes, sir, this year.
Okay, I thought you were saying we weren't going to make it this year.
Well, whenever I said we didn't make it this,
Okay.
I was still in mindset of 2021, apologize. But no, the last meeting that we had, we have missed the last 2 meetings or 2 Thursdays for holidays and different things. But the projected date is now June of 2022.
So if we don't pass the foliage test, they're not going to move the towers. What's the alternative?
It's not so much passing the full foliage test, is they have to do a test with full foliage to find out exactly what our percentage of.
To characterize the,
Correct.
okay.
Yeah, so that way, their guess, so when we started the project, it's roughly 60% of the county is, the radios are available in 60% of the county. The new system should get us just over 90%. But of course, if we do that test today with no leaves on the trees, it's going to be a whole lot better than with full foliage. So that's the reason for the full foliage test. Any questions on the towers or any of that? One thing I did want to bring up is we have, I did have some discussion earlier in 2021 with the Director of Emergency Communications for Hanover. He has since retired. So the communications will resume with the new lady. I've not met her yet, but we put in place a tentative step back on the cost that we pay to Hanover County for the current system. County administrator for Hanover County basically just said, you guys figure out the numbers and bring it to us. One thing I can report, anything that we change, let me find this. Yeah, we cannot nullify any prior agreement without actions from both of the Board of Supervisors. When this was put in place, it was voted on by this panel as well as Hanover's panel of what was put in place. So pretty sure that that's what we're going to have to, the thought process is to have you guys and their board vote to remove the contract that is put in place and then move between county administrators moving forward rather than having the boards vote on it. That was something that Kurt and I spoke about, but we'll see what happens with their side. Of course, they're going to be a little more reluctant because the amount of money that they're no longer going to be receiving from us, but they knew that this was coming with us putting our,
So the Motorola project is gonna do away potentially with our agreement with Hanover.
not exactly. What it will do is we will still be using their core. We do not have our own core system. What will happen is we will have 5 towers here in the county that we will be utilizing, only 3 of theirs, 1 being the core, and then 2 is Georgetown and Old Church. We will ride, the simulcast system does use those 7 towers to complete the ring here for the county. So we will be using some of theirs, and we're looking at potentially, I have the numbers here. It would be a drop down on the first year. Now, this was just rough numbers that we spoke about. This has not been agreed upon by anybody. But the first step down would bring us down 112,046 over what we currently pay. And then the years 2 through 5, we would reduce the payment again, which would bring us down 187, 642.
Is that over and above the 112 for year 1?
No, that's just
That's total.
total. Yes, sir. So what we had discussed would be that the King William County would pay Hanover $100,000 every year to use their core system. Year 1, we would pay them $150,000 for usage. And then years 2 through year 5, we would pay $75,000 per year. Which brings us, the first year we would pay $250,000. Years 2 through 5 would be $175,000. Just to give you some perspective, we currently for fiscal year 2022, we paid them $362,642. So we would be after the first year would be a very significant reduction. Of course, we brought on a whole lot more cost with having our own system, but we will also be able to give emergency services 92% coverage over what we currently have.
And I assume that having our own core is cost prohibitive.
You're looking between $8,000 to $10,000 or $8 to $10 million was the last I was told, in addition to what we're currently paying.
Do we have an agreement with West Point? They pay part of this, or is that a different agreement? For communication services?
That I don't know.
Is it any agreement at all, or? We as a county pay for West Point and their
I'm
services.
seeing a head
So-
shake yes in the rear of the building.
Yes, Sheriff Walton says yes,
So it is an agreement. Okay, was just one.
but I can find that information if you want to provide it.
I just thought it may be. Okay.
Any questions?
They asked enough.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Well, I'm gonna jump on another short subject, hopefully. The chief was talking about the EOC being here, and well, mainly at Station 1.
Station 1 is
and
EOC.
Back up here. Do we have any, I guess, satellite or anything to pick up news broadcast if this was set up watching a major incident, a major storm approach?
Not currently in place. That's what we're working on.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Broadband update, Mr. Hudgens.
Good evening, gentlemen. Has been announced here before and discussed. King William County was awarded Beatty Grant, which is allowing us to move forward with ubiquitous broadband for the county. And I just wanted to bring you up to speed on what we know of as the next steps in this process. So the Department of Housing and Community Development contacted us with the grant award and has now set up a kickoff meeting for later this month on the 24th. And this meeting will be between the county, All Points Broadband as the internet service provider, and the DHCD. And that is to nail down further dates. And that will lead into the county making an agreement, signing an agreement with All Points Broadband, which will be exactly in line with their grant proposal. So we'll be coming back to you with that agreement later. And then after that is signed, then we meet back and sign a separate agreement with the DHCD. That'll be between us and them, saying that we have got an agreement with All Points and it is exactly as the grant application went. Once we have that agreement with the DHCD, that is when the VADI grant money is available. And correspondence with All Points says that after that point, they will be beginning their low-level design and pre-construction activities. 4 months after that agreement, they're going to actually be digging in the dirt. Construction is underway. 7 months after that agreement, the first customers will actually be installed. And 18 months after that, the network will be substantially completed. So looking at it as a year, in terms of timing, All Points will begin pre-construction activities in the second quarter. And then they expect to start construction in King William in the third quarter of this year. We did question on, so I know you are receiving questions, where are they going to start? Who's getting internet first? They said it's too early to tell exactly where. They're just gonna, once they start that design level process, is what materials are available and what areas to start in first. So they didn't have that information for us yet. But they did say, because we all have concerns about materials and availability, that when they presented it back in September as well, that they are a significant buyer from their vendors, and they put in these forecasts way back in September when you decided to submit for that application and approve the $2.5 million that the county is on the hook for. So they are saying that we're benefiting from that, and that they are going in a first come, first served basis, who signed their agreements first, which puts us ahead of such communities as Hanover and some of the other big agreements that they have. But we're still going to be, of course, watching closely to make sure that we're not just left out. And I also wanted to say, just as background, and I've got the map up here. So when All Points made the agreement with the county and applied for the grant, all the little yellow dots on there are the areas that they are obligated to construct. Now the whole county, and we won the VADI grant because it is ubiquitous for the county. It takes into account all areas, but the areas in blue were already obligated under federal grant money that was won by Atlantic Broadband, now named Breeze Line. They just told us today. So those were already under federal grant obligations to a separate company, but it's all rolled together as a plan for the county as a whole.
So that 2,000, whatever the number was, that includes the blue also? It doesn't. So
It does not.
Okay, so this, okay. So do we know how many residences are already served? Do we have a number for that?
I don't have that number with me tonight. I can find it. Basically, right now, it's the area that's clear. Central Garage.
The blue dots, especially in the north
In West Point, I
quadrant,
guess.
West Point, we're not even discussing because they
Yeah,
already have
right.
trucks.
Right.
So they're not even a player at this point, perhaps in the future, but especially in the north of King William, those are under the Federal Communications Commission, RDOF, Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. That grant was won by Atlantic Broadband earlier this year, I believe it was.
Early in the year.
And their plans are not as detailed. They have up to 6 years to complete their agreement. We're going to be engaging with them soon. We expect that there's a little bit of I wouldn't say confusion, but there's a new name, which brings with it a lot of changes perhaps, but Mr. Hudgens and certainly I will be engaging Atlantic Broadband to determine what their schedule may be to complete that, especially the north sector of King William. So
Right. We asked a lot of questions early on with all points on what can we do to assure that those blue areas aren't left behind while everyone else gets theirs on a faster time schedule. And it makes business sense for them to move at the same speed. But that's also what we're going to be talking with the new Breeze Line name group, what we can do there.
Central Garage, if I'm seeing that map correctly, is it nothing there?
Atlantic
It
Broadband,
is already served
They
by
already
Atlantic
serve.
Broadband. That is what they put in 2 years ago, year and a half ago.
that's essentially the old Comcast network.
Like, I thought it had to be something.
Yeah, so they already, before all this grant money came out, that was the only area in the county that was going to be making money for these providers, was to take over those dense areas.
Going back to what I asked Travis, will this probably include us getting some kind of service to the building, and do we have any kind of agreement?
Well, Station 1 already has, is served by the Atlantic Broadband.
This building's served by.
And this building is served by Segra. We are talking,
But that's not really, it's the internet, but I mean, it's not like any kind of.
this building is hardwired. The building at Station 1 is it hardwired to the community center or Station 1?
Coax going into Station 1.
Yeah. So they already have hardwire.
But I mean, like cable or anything like that, like I was talking about for a national incident. So we're gonna get that through one of the services here.
That's a phone call that I have to Atlantic Broadband to see if that can be
Okay.
provided at fire station for both the front end of the house and the rear.
Any further questions?
So to reiterate, the last part there, All Points and their investment group are contributing 56% of this total bill. The Valley is contributing 5.4. The county's contribution is 2.5. You can't beat these prices. Despite some of the negative comments coming out. This is the only way, I think most in this room tonight will agree that this is the only way that we're going to secure broadband for the majority of King William, is to do it and contribute through government funding. Just as the electricity situation at the turn of the last century was, it wouldn't have gotten out were it not for government funding and push. Otherwise, we're going to leave King William behind. So that's my soapbox from that. Thank you, Mr. Hudgens. Any questions? I'm sorry, gentlemen.
Go ahead. Did you want
Go ahead.
to? Sorry,
I'm
Frank.
just like you said, I noticed where you said Nagak, the northern end of the county is living there. There's also a lot of blue right around central. So that area is going to be like 6 years built out too. That section right there between all the yellow dots are where it's what's coming right now.
Wasn't that All Points RDOF grant? I thought
I'll have to double check on that.
they, Atlantic, All Points also won an RDOF. When the Valley opportunity came along, they sort of combined the two. So, yeah, I think we need some little clarification.
Yeah, I guess, because I was looking at the same thing, because I remembered that Atlantic Broadband's RDOF being very small compared to the rest of this project. So, yeah, I'd like a little more clarity on what
Sure.
blue dot versus yellow dot is, because if that blue dot section really is the Atlantic Broadband RDOF, then yeah, we've got to really be on them about 6 years, making sure this is successful. I mean, RDOF's funny the way that they do it. They got 6 years to use the money. They could always just not use it and send it back, but they got 6 years. But if the RDOF award was that substantial, then I would think that that might change their calculation a little bit on that. But I'm wondering if we're not looking at the difference between the RDOF and the body, the use, where those funds are being directed to one phase or another.
Yes,
I
I need to
feel-
clarify
well,
that.
and I feel like it might be an important clarification because a lot of people in those blue dot areas are going to get very anxious if they think that it's not tied to this project. I think so. We'll just
good point.
clear it there. Yeah.
Anything else, Mr. Raymond? You've started.
Yeah, that was what I wanted to check, because it looked like you said, 'cause that area looks like it's close to just central, where the hard cable, like you said, ALET, central garage, and right next to it is where it's gonna be like forever. So,
Right. And so then otherwise, no, I mean, I'm sure it's well understood that our goal now is to just move this, keep advancing the ball down the field
Right.
as quickly as we can. So.
It's also important to make sure that everybody knows to please get signed up. And they have in the past estimated a 50% pass. That people will not take the service, about 50% will not take it. So it's frustrating that we make all this effort and people don't take it up. So we've got to stress the importance and growth.
That seems higher to me. It would not, but I don't know.
Be surprised. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Graham, Smart Scale.
Good evening. Recently, the Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission, with the studies that were received from VDOT, they came up with several areas in the county with safety concerns. They asked that we put some smart scale applications in. We had to prioritize and come up with recommendations to fix these areas. With these locations, Mr. Wagner and I, we both went out, we looked at these locations, came up with recommendations, and we submitted 5 intake pre-applications. All 5 of the intake applications that were submitted to VDOT met all the criteria for smart scale. So then our next thing that we would need to do is submit pre-applications, and they have to be submitted by April 1st. The final would be August 1st, and then they would make a decision in January as to whether we got accepted. It could be 1, it could be all 5, it could be none of them. It just depends. The first one was 15th Street intersection. That's down in West Point, the Valero, Walgreens, major intersection there. Mr. Ashcraft and I, we did go to one of the town meetings. VDOT was there, kind of presented the information on this. I also met with them last week. Mr. Ashcraft is going to meet with them this week. So we're still kind of waiting from West Point to see if they're on board with this. But that was the number 1 location.
So we need to walk carefully there because it's the last drugstore we got in the county.
We
And
know,
You
and,
don't want them lifting up and going out of here.
and that is their main concern.
Yeah.
And if they're not on board with it,
And it's a tough intersection, but
it is.
it's built all around it. I don't know where you're gonna send it. You got sidewalks, you can't take those. It's very little room there, and it is dangerous. I don't care what you do. Pulling out of Walgreens is gonna be difficult to see, and that's where most of the crashes occur.
Now, are we, just clarify real quick, because I've got one picture in my head, but then the numbers are telling me something. So are we talking about literally 15th Street, the road behind Walgreens, between Walgreens and the Valero? Okay. Because
Well,
when we
it's
started talking
actually
about traffic
the,
signals and stuff, I was like, that's 14th Street.
well, it's the whole
But
block.
between that whole
Yeah.
block is what they're discussing.
There, Valero, Walgreens, they've talked about putting an island to prohibit the left turn into the drugstore. They've talked about rerouting it on up and through the residential area, which is probably not a good idea.
I hope we, at some point, gonna get a hold of Walgreens corporate. Like I said, we do not want to see them disappear.
No, we don't.
Uh,
So,
But that's, and when I saw it, I knew I was gonna say something. And it would be nice to fix that, but the amount of tractor trailer traffic that you've got there, you get 4 or 5 in there and it's backed up past the mill, pretty much.
yeah, the biggest question is how to fix it
Yeah,
without affecting the businesses right there.
right.
So, the second one is 360 and Choctaw Ridge to Central Crossing Shopping Center. Right in that vicinity, we have another entrance, as you've seen, that's coming in. So they're talking about widening the turn lanes, making sure that they are directly across. So when you come out of the new entrance and you can go straight across, visibility is another issue there. So there was a couple of things that they were looking at, and of course, they have to do a traffic study in that vicinity if this is one that's.
So was this if you headed east on 360, right before you get to Route 30, that crossover right there?
Do you know
Going
where?
into Central Crossing?
Well, it's actually both. It's the existing shopping center entrance on 360,
Right,
and then where the car wash is.
yeah.
There-
That's a bad, you can get stuck right there and people impatient, if you catch it at the wrong time, I always try to go out a different way.
Yeah.
Because that's a good project there.
That was our number 2. Third one is Route 360 and Mount Pleasant. The biggest thing there is make sure that we have adequate turn lanes to get the traffic off the road, the main road, so they can safely slow down to turn in.
So to do that, they would probably have to, VDOT would probably have to purchase more of a right of way.
I don't think so. Looking at it, I think there's enough room there that they could widen that to do that without having to purchase anything. And that, of course, a stop sign that will warn motorists. That was another thing that was brought up. Fourth one is Venter and Walnut Lane intersection. That's heavy traffic at peak times. People turning in and out of there, inadequate turn lanes as well. So that was another thing they need to correct the turn lanes and make them wide enough and long enough that the traffic can get in and out of there without having to slow down real good with the traffic going 55 and 60 miles an hour there. And then the last one is Route 647 Mill Road at the intersection with 360. And same thing, turn lanes. Most of what VDOT was saying is turn lanes, stop bars, stop signs. And of course, all of them would require traffic studies to be done.
Did the crash history include fatalities and
It's supposed to.
classification
Mhm.
of the
Yeah. All of this is, the crash reports were done, of course, by VDOT. They have serious injuries, minor, possible, no injuries. And then they do have the fatal crashes on here as well.
So all those factors play into whether or not.
Yeah.
Were there any, did you narrow it down to 5 or just, were there others that you didn't feel that?
These were the top 5. Yeah.
A couple of these locations are very similar to some of the complaints we got during the summer about the maintenance of grass,
Yes.
Mill Road, this Venter, Walnut. both of those, I saw complaints.
And of course, Smart Scale is funded at 100%. So if they do approve our projects, then it would be 100% funded. But it's not something that's going to happen for probably 3 years or so, 3 or 4 years.
I was looking at the posted speed limits on a couple of these roads, Mill Road being one. I don't know where it is now. I think that's 45. Manfield Road, Enfield Road, that's basically agricultural, and we have a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit there. Mill Road, it's a lot of traffic through there. What would have to be done to get the speed limit reduced?
We would have to request it with VDOT, I believe, and they would probably have to do a study. We did mention reducing the speed limit.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Well, not on Mill Road, but on 360 in the vicinity where the shopping center is.
That would probably
Yeah,
be a good
They
idea.
have to do a study on it
Yeah.
to reduce it.
I know at one time in the previous administrator, there was an initiative to change on 30, to drop it from 45 to 35. And I don't know if that's been dropped or just overlooked, or, and then we were looking at extending it past the ballpark where it turns into, well, it needs to be extended because it's a blind outlet there at the ballpark road. Any recollection on it?
I can check on it, but I'm not aware of it.
I distinctly remember the discussion, but
Do you remember when they first reduced the speed limit through there to 45? I was probably the first person that got a ticket. But yeah, 35 through there, it's a lot of residential, development through there too.
And
Could
traffic
cars
light.
do 45?
Well, if it's posted 45, you'll have people that always go 50.
I was specifically asking in reference to your ticket, if they actually had automobiles capable of that speed at the time that you would have gotten that ticket.
Well, it was a Model A.
all right, this is
But I was going
deteriorating.
57.
Well, I'll tell you, every month, there are several that come into court at 97 and 98.
Yeah, you'll always have those.
And I don't know, dropping the speed for them wouldn't matter anyway.
Yeah.
Well, right. The only insight that I might have on that is being somewhat familiar with what New Kent just went through, getting that speed limit dropped in that section approaching Farmers Drive. And I think it took them 3
Well, they
years
50
or more. And VDOT is reluctant to drop speed limits once they've set them. And I've had a previously unposted road through the request of a resident, was able to work with them and get it posted at a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, and that took a year.
It takes a while.
Yeah.
Even up on a residential street like down in West Point, it took a good while to get it reduced.
It's a matter of safety, though. I mean, speed can make a bad accident worse, especially at Mill Road coming out of there, and Benner Road also. If the posted speed limit on 360 was reduced, that additional 10 miles an hour might save a couple of lives. There's been quite a few accidents there over the years.
Ms. Graham, who's the lead responsible office? Is that you to get these requests together?
Our office would be the ones to submit the pre-applications and the
Planning
applications.
Commission have any handle in it?
Now, we will get assistance with VDOT. I know last year when we submitted an application, VDOT was very helpful. And of course, Kurt Smith with the Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission is also offering to help as well.
Good resource. Any other questions, gentlemen? Appreciate it.
So
So as far as guidance goes, I think it would sound like then we're in agreement that we would like to advance you know, what you have here, you know, for the time being, I guess, unless somebody comes up with something drastically different between now and
Well,
next week.
if that is the case, we will go ahead and start the pre-application process since they have to be in on April 1st. With the West Point one, we're gonna wait to, you know, hear what they have to say. We want them to be on board. If they're not on board, we don't want to carry that any further. So, and of course, once we submit the final applications in August, I'll be back for resolutions for each one of these.
Good luck.
I guess you just added one more question to me. If the application's gotta be in that soon, and you and I both don't have a clue as to what to do at 15th Street, so what are you submitting?
These are just pre-applications.
What do they say? I mean,
Basically the same information that's on here with mapping and so forth. The pre-applications will kick off them to help with mapping, studies, cost. So they will help provide that information.
that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks.
And to round things out, Mr. Ashcraft, Waco 2022 legislative program and priorities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get into the Waco program, I'd like to just cover quickly a couple new laws that went into effect January 1. You may have heard some of these, but some of these may be new to you. The first one was of significance is raising the minimum wage. That certainly is an increase to any business that has to do that, including us. We had 7 part-time employees who were behind the curve, and we've raised them to the level which they're entitled to, which is now $11 an hour. And all those employees were part-time in Parks and Recreation, I believe. Also, there's minimum insurance coverage that went into effect that requires vehicles in Virginia that will increase. It raises the minimum insurance coverage requirements over the next 3 years. And then there's a table that they have. Current requirements are $25,000 for one person, $50,000 for 2 or more, property damage at $20,000. And then it goes into policies that are effective through January 1 of 22 through December of 24, and then policies that are effective on or after January 1 of 2025. That we would encourage all residents to check your insurance coverage now. You may or may not be impacted, but the new law is out there, and you could be. Many of you, we've all probably been victim of this, where we've received surprise billings with your health insurance. There's some protection there now. State law has given that a little bit of a protection, safety net that allows people to be able to check on those things, and particularly it would also provide some coverage for out-of-network procedures that they always seem to get you, even if it's out of network to the next locality. Sometimes they will raise those rates or copays and so forth. So that's another protective measure that the General Assembly tried to do. And then finally, all municipal elections will move to November. Of course, that would include the town of West Point, and that begins in November of this year of 22. So as you know, they used to be held anywhere from May, June.
They changed it a long time ago.
Yeah, okay. So, okay, you have in your packet the legislative program from Waco. I'm not going to read every priority, but I did want to just bring it forward because we're a little late in the game in getting our own legislative agenda established for this year. The deadline for bill presentations has already passed. Next year, I hope to begin earlier in the fall to where we would not only have a work session that would cover our priorities, but we would also get one or more of our legislators who happen to represent us, if they would join us at a meeting, and we can talk with them a little more about what our interests might be. But if you look at your program, they have 8 different categories, which is standard for Waco: economic development and planning, education, energy, environment and agriculture, finance, general government, health and human services, and transportation. They have one priority that they've set for each of those categories, and then they have numerous positions that they've established. And this went through the Waco chain of command. They have a committee that works on this, and then it goes to the full membership. And I believe this was approved at the summer or fall meeting that they had. We will be establishing relationships with all of our legislators, as well as any of the organizations that we belong to that might be interested in legislation that would affect us. The planning district folks always have a good eye on this. The Alliance, as it relates to economic development, is likely to have a good sense of this. So we're going to be in tune during the whole legislative session. Legislative day that Waco, VML, and I believe the planning districts hold, that'll be in Richmond again this year, February the 3rd. I believe Ms. Branch sent a notice out to all of you asking if you would like to participate in that. If you do, let us know. We'll provide the transportation. There is a cost that they charge for lunch. It's anywhere between $25 or so. It's a pretty expensive box lunch, but the information is really good. And some try to make it a longer day, and they'll go up to the Capitol and try to chase down your legislator. I personally haven't had much luck with that. They're usually busy about that time of the day. So we try to do our homework a little earlier than that. But to get the briefing and to interact a little bit with other localities and their members, that's always been a value. So we plan to go. We'll take a couple of our staff members with us, those that are impacted by some of the legislation. And any of you that would be able to find the time to do that, we would probably adjourn our meeting on the 24th to that day, so that if there's 3 or more members that are going to attend, then you're technically in a meeting, so you will be allowed to talk government business to do that. But if there's only 2 of you or less, then we wouldn't have to do that. So think about it, check your schedules, and if you want to go, you notify us. Any one of us 3 will be able to take your reservation. Are there any questions on anything that's in here? I don't want to pass this up lightly, but I think it's self-explanatory, the positions of Waco, and some of this mirrors with us. As you can see, their #1 priority in economic development and planning is broadband. And, we're right, I think we're ahead of where many localities, particularly rural ones, are experiencing. So we're ready to go. And then, we'll be handling some of the other things that are going on with economic development. And again, I go through all the categories, and you'll see where the legislature will be encouraging them to try to meet some of the demands. And some of these you've seen for years. Full funding of education, you've seen that for years. Additional funding for social services.
Unfunded mandates.
Unfunded mandates, and there has been some progress made actually in the last several years. But still, they throw one on you in the last minute, and you know how that works. So, are there any questions?
Gentlemen?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman. I voted to support this package at the meeting in November. I think Waco's covered, the big issues. It's going to be another session of change like we had a couple of years ago. There'll be some new members that need to be educated. I think that'll be a big job of some of the people that we have up there, including some, lobbying firms like Waco and those that we employ at the PDC level. I think, though, probably the biggest flashpoint this year is going to be the surplus and what happens with that. And, you know, of course, from our position here, we would love to see them restore aid to localities to pre-recessionary levels. Will that happen? Who knows? But I think that's going to be a big fight this year. So we'll keep an eye on that.
It is, very much so. And keep in mind, what's hanging out there is redistricting. There's been some challenge to the maps that have been presented already. I think the courts are going to end up deciding officially where they all go, but that could change our legislative makeup. Well, certainly probably will. Scott White in particular looks like he may only be with us one more year, but we would add Mr. Hodges, I believe, would be our delegate, and then I'm not sure where Tommy Norman and that situation is. He's kind of caught in the middle somewhere. So we'll have a better look at that after the courts have an eye on it.
Mr. Moskowski, I'll defer to you on this. Of course, Mr. Hodges had half the county, well, maybe a third of the county. It is. Do we anticipate any major changes in his strategy? I'm not sure how to describe it. He knows King William. I'll put it.
Well, right. He knows certainly my part of King William very well, and what in the town of West Point. You know, I think you'll find that there's more in common than there is different. Obviously, Mr. Hodges has been focusing the last several years on issues that heavily impact the Middle Peninsula, Northern Neck, Eastern Shore, coastal areas, coastal flooding issues, Chesapeake Bay issues, things that may not be necessarily on the front of mind of maybe the voters in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th districts, but the issues nonetheless which impact you know, our ability to effectively you know, commoditize, commercialize, develop the areas that we want to develop, place burdens on homeowners and stuff like that. So I don't think you'll see a big change. You know, perhaps the biggest change is you'll have, you know, a seasoned legislator covering the entire county, which I think can only help.
So he will assume that the entire county.
Under the current, assuming the current map's going into effect, which I mean, unless the Supreme Court's prepared to say that they got it wrong and turn their own maps.
I think the only thing that's going to happen is that Scott White, rather than being only with us one more year, could possibly be 2 years if it's drug out in the courts. Other than that, I think you're going to see the change that's been described.
That's what I was wondering. I've heard from constituents, does that take effect at this election? Or like you said, it could take effect if there's legal stuff, it could go to 2023.
Yes.
Yeah, right now it looks like everything's going to hold on until the next General Assembly election that's scheduled. The court could always decide that the maps are so different that that election needs to happen
That's right.
now. So TBD on that. But there's still scenarios that haven't played out all the way.
That's right.
In regards to that.
Mr. Ashford, if I could ask you to consider putting together what's the right word for it, a package to present to Mr. Hodges should he
Sure.
become, to give him a better sense of the rest of King William.
Sure, absolutely.
Just start thinking about putting that together.
Get him on our mailing list, get him on all the things that we're promoting and everything, absolutely.
Okay.
Good.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, supervisor's requests. Start to my left, Mr. Moskowski.
Nothing to request right now. I'm looking forward to getting into the budget. It's going to be, I don't think anything bad, but I think there'll be some good opportunities this year. And then heading into the reassessment and everything. So just looking forward to seeing what we all have as priorities and what staff comes up with, how we manage those things.
Mr. Gerber.
I don't really have anything.
Mr. Greenwood.
Well, I was just wondering if we could maybe get back into the position of having the VDOT come a little more often. They used to come every quarter. Now when Joyce left, they have a new person, but they seem to have gotten some stuff in, but it would be better if we could get back on a regular schedule.
I've talked to Mr. McKnight. He's poised to come once a quarter.
Oh.
Probably either have him in February, March at the latest, but hopefully February. I hope to have him.
Because that was one of the things that maybe want to bring it maybe in a work session is, like they said, they finished the improvement at 360, but there's a lot of trouble still with the light heads. since I work for VDOT, I know, they put all the extra lanes in with all the space that they have. The two light heads line up with the medians.
And I
So
guess,
it's,
I guess I neglected to give you guys an update,
Oh.
but I did meet with Mr. McKnight up there
oh, okay.
and pointed out those issues.
Oh, great.
He fully understood. He's supposed to be evaluating it and then hopefully get back with us. I figured I'd give him a few months to,
Thank you very much.
but I think he agreed that it was a simple fix.
Yeah, just add another light in and turn one into a left turn signal, one for straight and one for right. Yeah. Great.
So we'll see.
Sounds good. That's all. I have just.
Mr. Hodges.
Not a whole lot other than COVID seems to be rampant. I mean, what I think the governor declared a state of emergency dealing with COVID. And my sister that I talked about, a few weeks ago, she's still in the hospital and doesn't look like she'll get out anytime soon, very weak. But the prognosis is that she probably will survive. It's the good part. It's been a long journey and breathing, but what COVID does to the body, the heart, and the lungs is what a lot of people don't realize. What it can really down the road do to you. But anyway, they weren't vaccinated, and she's already heard it from me. Probably will hear it again, but I don't know that they will learn from that. The other thing is what I was thinking about earlier with the speeds, and I got to thinking, people need to slow down. I mean, 360, it's like that sheriff knows that they issue enough and get enough signatures from the deputies up there, but it don't seem to be slowing it down. And I know coming off the bridge into West Point, they could probably write 100 a day or more, and it still doesn't seem to slow up. And it's the locals, it's not all these out of town. But everybody be safe and try to protect yourself as much as you can. I still live my life, but I try to do some precautions on the COVID. Thank y'all, and thank you for the appointment.
Mr. Ashcraft, did the emergency announcement affect us in any way? Is it too early to determine? Do we have a clear understanding of the impacts?
He declared an emergency, but he never put any new guidelines in it, from what I.
Right. What I read, it was specifically dealing with hospitals.
Yeah, nothing, and we got the Three Rivers report, that comes out weekly, and it came out.
There is a Congressman Whitman telecon this week. Do y'all get those notifications? But it has Dr. Rivers, Dr.
William?
Dr. Williams.
Yeah,
As part of that.
we do. Yeah, he usually gives an update on every other Friday.
Yeah, this
Every
is,
Friday.
this
Yeah,
is a
okay.
Zoom session on,
Okay.
I'll pass it, I'll forward it to you
Right.
if you want. The only request I have, curiosity, Sweet Sue. What's going on with Sweet Sue? What's the deadline?
They, Dominion,
Did you get what I sent you this morning? You were out of the office today, right?
Do you want this answered now or at a future
Well,
meeting?
no, well,
We were notified this morning of some issues that they feel like the staff should be shaping up a little bit, and Sherry was out today, so I didn't get. a chance to do
this
it.
was from Dominion.
This is from Sweets, whoever's representing the
Well,
project.
The,
They're representing Dominion, yes.
yeah, Dominion sent out letters probably 3 months ago, 2 months ago,
Yeah.
and said that they would, when they got close, they were gonna organize a public meeting.
Yeah,
But I don't think anybody's heard anything.
yeah, they had 4 or 5 issues that they wanted staff, because I guess they got the feeling that maybe we're not moving as quickly on the staff end as we should be, and I don't necessarily agree with that, but we need to talk with them, so
Yeah, and-
contract is reopened.
In that letter, I don't know if any of y'all got it or not, but
I'm not-
they said that they were looking to start in the early second quarter, which really isn't too far away. You know, that may be delayed now.
We'll have more on that after Sherry and I have a chance to talk from what we
Okay.
received today. And you get it Tuesday. I'll give it to you.
Okay, thanks. With that, gentlemen, may I have a motion to convene into closed meeting?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion. We go into closed section under section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia. I move the Board of Supervisors convene in closed session meeting to consider a personnel matter involving the appointment of individuals to boards and commissions and the resignation of a specific employee.
Second.
Discussion? Ms. Branch?
Aye.
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 Aye. We're now in closed session. We'll be back shortly. Vacation?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve SR1.
Second.
Ms. Branch?
Aye.
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 Go ahead.
And if I could get resolution, we're going to modify resolution 22-07R. Appointments to the King William County Redistricting Advisory Committee. I'll just read off. First District, Reverend William Palmer. Second District, Mr. Eugene Campbell. Third District, Mr. Steve Adams. Fourth District is vacant for the time being, and Fifth District is Jeanette Wagner. May I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Branch?
Aye.
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 Aye. And if I could get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is adjourned. Court is adjourned.
The minutes show adjournment by acclamation.
Happy New Year, to everybody.
Yeah.
Good night.